Hello and welcome to Rolling with Two. I'm Will, and with me as always is the person who thinks having 8 oceans on a planet is just plain silly.
Sarah.
And today we're doing a 2-player perspective and accessibility for Terraforming Mars, the dice game. Sarah, tell us a bit about this game.
All right, Terraforming Mars, the dice game, is a card-driven dice game where players use special dice to develop their corporations and terraform Mars into a new home for humanity.
But only 7 oceans.
Apparently. Yeah. The dice represent resources that players spend to play their cards and perform other actions. During the game, you increase your production of dice, terraform and place cities and greenery tiles on the board, and gain various bonuses. The game ends when 2 of the 3 global parameters have been completed: oxygen, temperature, or ocean. The player with the most victory points wins the game. So Will, how does the game change for 2 players?
So for 2 players, the number of bonus cards used is the only thing that's player count dependent.
Right.
So you'll use 2 bonus cards per player. So for a 2-player game, it's 4 more for other players. There is no but.
Nope.
So
yeah.
No Martian nanas.
No Martian nanas.
Very sad.
All right. So the issue at the 2-player count, this is going to be the longest version of the game. And that is because the goals are the same regardless of player count. You are trying to get to the end of 2 tracks or put all of the ocean tiles on, and you only have 2 players to do that. So it's going to take longer to accomplish those. At a higher player count game, those are going to happen faster because you got 4 people or whatever doing it.
Yeah. I think the engine building in this game is still stop and start.
Yes.
So most games, as you build things out, you're just going to get really faster. And that does happen in this game.
A little bit.
But not to the same speed, because a lot of the actual abilities that you'll essentially turn your card sideways to say you activate, you have to wait for a whole production turn, which is a turn you're not building anything before those get refreshed. So it has a very slow plodding pace about playing the game.
Right.
Which makes it so that, yeah, I'm more powerful in the end game. I don't feel I'm all that faster.
Yeah, it's not... If you want to say it has engine building, it is really not really there. Your tableau building with some special abilities, but it's definitely not much that's going to make you faster in any of this.
Yeah, if anything, you'll get more reaction out of the cards that have this one-time bonus of do this, and like, yay, stuff happened. Yep. And that gave me enough stuff so I can do this. Yay, stuff happened. And that actually combos much more than anything that you do production-wise with your blue ability cards or your brown production cards.
Agreed. So what it does well, you will have more access to the dice you want because there's just fewer people. There's only 2 people at the table. The dice pools, again, are the same regardless of the player count. So at 2 players, you have the most access to the dice that you want, which also means the pools of dice are less likely to be exhausted. If a pool of dice is out, you just can't take any. It's not like you can steal them from somebody else. So I imagine at higher player counts, that's going to occur a lot more frequently. So there's this kind of give and take of, well, you get a longer game at 2-player, which is not really what you want for this, but you get access to all the dice you want. And at a 4-player count, that flips.
Yeah. However, they do realize that can happen. So they say whenever pool runs out and there's more dice for you to take, you get a wild token as a consolation. Just one. No matter how many dice you're missing.
Yeah, so if you did a production turn and you needed 5 dice and you only got 2 of them, you're out 3 dice, you get 1 wild token. So that still doesn't feel great.
Wild tokens are very powerful, though.
They are, but...
But you'd rather have 3 more dice.
Yes, generally speaking, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's about it for the 2-player experience. Accessibility, all right, strap in. The board and cards often show the color of a die. So if you have colorblind accessibility, and since there are 5 colors of dice in this game.
Is that blue or gray?
Yeah.
Is that green or blue? Is that red or blue?
Yeah.
Red or green? Yellow?
Yellow or green.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and the thing is, normally I wouldn't think gray would be a problem, but gray is actually kind of close to blue. So depending on your color issues, well, that could be an issue. So now the ones that show a specific symbol on a die, those are okay because those symbols are specific to dice. So the gray die has
three distinct symbols.
Right. So if it says you need a star, you know that's the gray die, and you just take a gray die with the star symbol. But if it just says you need a gray die and you're like, I don't know don't know that it's gray, it might be blue, you have to get someone to help you. And that's, yeah, not fun. Less important, but still could be an issue, is the player components. You need 1 tracking cube for your score and 1 little tile that just kind of reminds you what your color is and also covers up the starter resources.
Just so you don't get confused and try to take it again.
Exactly. Honestly, if none of the translucent cubes work for you, grab something else small that will fit on the track.
Little spaceman minifigure.
Yeah, and that's yours. And I don't think you need a token to remind you which one's yours if, it's your favorite thing ever and you've put it there. So, the component list. Okay, so at first we didn't think there was a component list at all. So there's a very brief, short sentence kind of summarizing what there is, but it's on the back of the box in tiny font near the bottom where nobody would really look for it. So why this is a problem is we unwrapped all the cards and we started sorting the cards and we shuffled it all together and we didn't realize we shuffled the expansion cards in. Part of that was because there was no component list saying, hey, these are identified expansion cards. You can identify them by this little yellow bar at the bottom. And also, it doesn't reference in the setup that says, hey, in setup, you also have expansion cards. Leave those aside. For rules on how the expansion cards work, see this page.
I think they left little divider cards.
Yeah, but they look like the corporation cards, so I think I sorted them into the corporation stack. Because they use the same framing, 100% the same framing as the corporation cards. So I shuffled them in there.
Yeah. So stylistically, they just blended.
Right.
They didn't separate anything.
Right. If they wanted to do divider cards, you need to make them highly distinct so you know that there's a separation.
Yeah.
And the other thing is once we got through the rules, got to the section on the expansion, we didn't read it because we're like, we're not going to play with the expansion.
Well, we understood that Terraforming Mars was a demanding game, so therefore we didn't want to overcomplicate things.
We still did.
Because so many times we've shot ourselves in the foot and we're experienced enough, throw everything in, and then we kind of regret it because we're still trying to learn the basics of the game, and then all these exceptions are coming at us from left and right. So we're like, we're smart. This time we're not going to do that.
No.
Little did we know, we went right into it, and we're wondering, it's like, okay, where's the component for this? And Sarah would have to get up. And
I don't understand how this ability works. Nothing in the rules talked about this ability. I even posted on BGG and somebody's like, it's in the rules. And I'm like, oh, it's an expansion card.
Yeah, and sure enough, as soon as we read the expansion, it's like, oh, the expansion cards can be signified by this yellow bar here and the promotional cards with these purple lights over here.
But it doesn't tell you that till the very end of the book. And if you don't think you're playing with them, you're generally not going to read it.
Now, you did notice that while we were playing, why are these ones have yellow bars?
Yeah, and I was like, this is really weird.
Yeah.
And I noticed they were more complex.
Yeah.
So I was like, hey, what did I do wrong? Because obviously we did something wrong. So that also then brings up the rules. They're okay, but they're not great. So some of the things don't seem to be laid out very well. There also feels like there's a lot of assumptions that you've played Terraforming Mars before. Like the goals, it just says get complete. It says complete.
Yeah, when completing 2 of the goals, the game will end. And I'm sitting there like, okay, what
does complete mean?
What does complete mean? And it finally gets around to saying, well, there's going to be oceans, temperature, and oxygen. I'm like, okay, that's great.
What do I need to do?
What does complete mean?
Yeah.
It never mentions the fact that what it means is you have to get to the end of the oxygen to the end of the temperature, or put out all 7 ocean cars, regardless of player count.
Yeah. Now, granted, experienced gamers can get to that conclusion.
Because they played Terraforming Mars before.
But if you've got, I mean, granted, maybe this isn't going to be for new gamers, but if you got someone relatively new to the hobby, they might not understand that. And it certainly wasn't clear to us, because also we've played other games where there's usually a spot for like, get this far on the bar at 2 players, and then it's 3 players, and then it's 4 players. But they didn't do that here, so it's like, I guess we just go to the end?
Yes.
Maybe?
That's still the assumption we're under, and that's what we're going with.
Talking about don't make assumptions in your rules, this game definitely relies on a lot of assumptions. Some other things that we really felt like it could have used, again, coming on with the assumptions, we really felt like it needed a reference sheet or something that goes over the iconography. Because again, they explain some things, but not others. And so you just kind of have to make inferences, hoping you're a smart enough gamer to figure it out.
Also, this goes back to those who have played Terraforming Mars. This is not going to be a problem, but it is going to be a problem for new players. When reading the iconography, it's very confusing since there are 15 resource icons. Now, someone who's played it before knows like, oh, that's a resource, that's a resource, that's a resource. I can read this easier. But seeing all these resources coming at you makes it very, very dense, learning it for the first time and learning it from someone who hasn't played Terraforming Mars.
And I would also say they were a little inconsistent in placement of benefits on cards. Sometimes they were in the middle of the card of this is what you gain, but then sometimes they're in the bottom left, but then sometimes the stuff in the bottom left is the things you do at the end of the game. So it just felt like there was some inconsistency issues there.
Yeah, in the layout.
Right. I guess my thing is I would have appreciated a full extra reference sheet that had every single card and just wrote out in English, plain text, what the heck each card does.
Yeah.
That's just, what it comes down to it. All right.
Because there's a lot of unique cards in here.
There are a lot of unique cards. So there are a few things the game does right accessibility-wise. As much as there are too many icons, they are all distinct. You're not going to get any of them mixed up for anything else. You just may not understand what they are.
Right.
And while your hands of cards should be kept secret, it wasn't the end of the world, because I had to read Will his cards because he couldn't identify any of the iconography. It was too much going on, and they were all over the place as to where they were. So it didn't affect the game too much. I think there was one instance where I knew something was in your hand, and it would have changed how I would have played, but I made the conscious choice to be, I'm going to do the thing not knowing.
Because that's what you were planning to do anyway.
This is what I'm planning to do.
Yeah, the attack cards are very rare and far between.
Very rare.
And at most, it's like, this player loses a die.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Whatever. Why even bother, but fine. It's an attack, okay.
Yeah, exactly. All right, let's get to the conclusion.
All right. For 2 players, would you recommend?
I mean, if you do not mind a long game. Now, let's be clear. Will and I always do take more time in playing games because of his vision disabilities. Still, our first game of this was over 2 hours, and our second game was just a bit under 2 hours.
Given the fact that the box says 45 minutes. Yeah. I mean, I expect us to at least double the time.
Yeah.
This was more than double the time.
Right. And playing it more, you will get faster. The problem being at the 2-player count, it is still going to be the longest version of the game. So I think it's going to be hard-pressed for anybody, even experienced gamers at 2-player count, to get this to 45 minutes, let alone an hour.
Yeah, because it'd be like, hey, great job. You just ran a 4-minute mile. And you're like, yeah, felt great. All right, 4 more to go. Wait, what?
Yeah.
I did the mile thingy and the time thingy. Yeah, and now you have 4 more of them to do.
Right.
Oh.
So for accessibility, there's going to be some colorblind issue.
I found it was more accessibility just for having extreme vision problems.
Yeah.
I think the biggest colorblind issues are going to be whether or not you can tell the plain cubes without any icons apart. And the easiest way to look is on the main board. There are a lot of spots where you put a tile down and get that benefit, and the benefit are going to be colored cubes. Because those reference the certain colored dice.
And the other place would be the brown cards, which are your production cards, because most of them just refer to a color of die that you gain during a production round.
Right.
So those are going to be it. And I think some people are going to have some cognitive challenges. It is simpler than the original Terraforming Mars. Not by a whole lot. There is still a lot going on.
Right.
All right, that's everything.
All right, Sarah. Why 7 oceans? Why is that the limit? Why is...
I don't know. Maybe just it's inhospitable to more.
Why not 8?
Well, there's 8 spaces on the board.
There's more than 8 spaces.
No, I thought there was just 8.
Well, I think there's more
No, there's 8 because there's specifically 1 space left for that one card that puts a forest on a water space.
Oh.
I think. Something like that.
I thought there was more.
No. But I agree. I don't know why there's only... I guess that's what
it's
they...
Science. That's what
science.
it is.
It's science.
And why would you ever science with just 1 when you can be sciencing with 2? And remember, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, you can reach out to us on the various social media platforms at
Rolling with 2. That's TWO. We are on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And on YouTube, please like and subscribe.
And if you have time, check out the other content Nanaman has found for you. Because remember, he's rolling with you.